And the person doing the intake looks and say, oh, you're a psychiatrist and your daughter has autism. That's so funny. I don't know what to do here. No one around me knew what to
Yes.
do, and nothing in the book would have been helpful.
Or
Because
adequate.
once it was recognized that it was severe, even the specialists who were supposed to help me were like, severe, we can't do anything.
This is Faith Beyond the Labels with Liz, where stories shine, faith ignites, and every soul finds its flame. I'm your host, Liz, a mom, an educator, and a neurodiversity advocate, walking this journey with you. So whether you're navigating neurodiversity, parenting with a purpose, or even rediscovering who you are beyond the labels, you've come to the right place. Let's go deeper than diagnosis. Let's uncover identity. Let's live beyond the labels. In today's episode, we're looking at diagnosis, denial, and divine direction. And my guest today is a very important person in the field of mental health, and you could say medicine. I'll introduce him in just a moment. So, if you have been following our show for a while, you'll realize that we do all things surrounding neurodiversity. We're meant to encourage those of you out there walking this journey. Now, in many of our Caribbean countries and communities, conversations around diagnosis can be complicated. Sometimes we hear nothing is wrong with your child, or they just need some discipline, or even this is spiritual. And while faith is a powerful foundation, we also have to ask, how do we discern when something needs prayer, support, or professional intervention, or even all three? Now, in fact, this isn't a new question. In the Bible, we know of John the Baptist, when the disciples saw, or in the book of John, when disciples saw a man who was born blind, they asked Jesus, who sinned? Is it the man or the parents? And Jesus responded, neither. But this happened so that the works of God might be revealed in him. I really, really ponder on this scripture a lot of times, and I reflect. And it just reminds me that not every difference and not every struggle is a punishment. I don't think it is. And sometimes I believe it's an opportunity for God's glory to be revealed, for deeper understanding, and for the purpose to be unfolded in whatever way that it is. And after all, he makes all things work together for good, even if he doesn't cause bad things to happen, because we're in an imperfect world. And Joshua Selman, I remember one of those famous speakers, said in one of his famous sermons, there are 7.2 billion actors for this movie. Don't limit the producer's capacity. So in other words, we have to leave it to God to decide how he does things. In other words, don't say, Lord, use this or use that or whatever. Who knows how the Lord will decide to do his healing or repurposing or redirecting or in order to solve a particular problem. And as parents, we wrestle with real difficult questions. Will my child lose who they are? Am I trusting God or ignoring help he has placed in my path? I've heard parents say, my child was fine before medication. Now they're like a zombie. Others share stories of sudden changes after maybe migration, after stress, after exposure to different environments, and they're left wondering what really changed. And then there are those that are more difficult. Those difficult cases where young adults who were once thriving, suddenly experiencing hallucinations, paranoia, or drastic personality traits. And families are unsure of what is really happening. Tonight, we are unpacking that tension between diagnosis, denial, and what I call divine direction. where faith meets wisdom, where truth meets compassion, and where understanding leads to empowerment. And to guide us through this very important conversation, I'm honored to welcome Dr. Stenette Davis. He's a psychiatrist here in the Cayman Islands. He comes with over 26 years experience in the field of mental health. And he has been, a psychiatrist since 2014. He's a mental health advocate by desire and an author by chance, a Jamaican in the diaspora, currently employed at Integra Healthcare. Dr. Stenette, welcome to Faith Beyond the Labels with Liz. Yes, I'm so happy that you're here because I believe that you have a very important story, a very important voice for those of us out there who needs some hope, direction. So take a moment to tell the guests about yourself.
So I think you covered some of it. So Dr. Davis, I'm, as I said, one of the persons in the diaspora. I'm from Jamaica, and that part is important to me. And it's funny that about half the population of Jamaicans are actually in the diaspora.
Yes.
And so being a representative is important, and the work that I'm doing in the community. I think you had asked me before we started, how did I end up in psychiatry?
Yes.
So when I just started medicine, before I knew what medicine was, I was like, I'm going to be a cardiologist or I'm going to be a neurologist. And as soon as I became an intern and I saw the patients lying on the ward extremely ill, and this patient that you spent a lot of time caring for, you go back to work tomorrow and she didn't make it the night.
Oh dear.
And because it's a hospital, before you enter the profession, you don't think about it. I was seeing the sickest persons, and then persons were dying. And I was like, I don't like to be this close to this.
Yes.
Right? So I said, okay, let me think about something else. So went and did accident and emergency, and all right, you're like, yes, this is more like it. People having struggles, and you're like, this is an emergency, lots of adrenaline.
Yes.
And then scamming became a thing in Jamaica, and then
dear.
People with very serious wounds, I won't say what kind of wounds, and then I was like, okay, I'm very close to death again, and it just didn't feel good,
Yes.
And so I said, what is something that really feels soulful? And then I remember my time in psychiatry, and I was like, initially when I started, I was very afraid, the stereotype about persons being violent. And then as I spent more time working with the persons and they got treatment and they improved, you got to see a drastic difference when persons were ill versus when they were back to themselves, and you're like, all my prejudices, all my stereotypes just had to go away.
Oh.
Because before you just thought about this mad person, but when they got the treatment they needed, it was just another human being just like me. And so that kind of rekindled my desire to say, just like I had these misconceptions before, I'm sure other people do.
Yes.
And if I could help persons to live the best life, to be seen just like everybody again, I wanted to be a part of that.
Awesome. So you're listening to Faith Beyond the Labels with Liz, and I'm here with Dr. Davis, who is going to be uncovering a very important topic. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Need help to produce your podcast? Flashpoint Media makes it very easy. We can relieve you of the headache by recording your podcast for you. So, take the first step to getting your content to your desired audience. Contact us here at Flashpoint, and your podcast will be live in no time. Our website is www.flashpointmedia.ky, or call us at 345-321-6969. That's 345-321-6969.
Welcome to Faith Beyond the Labels with Liz, where we trade fear for faith and labels for legacy. And I'm here with Dr. Stenette Davis, and he's helping us to unpack the topic diagnosis, denial, and divine direction. So, Dr. Stenette, when I read your book,
Yes.
When a Goose Gets a Duckling, you talk about mourning the dream.
Yeah.
And it reminds me of my story as well. You know, being a parent of a child who is neurodivergent. How has your professional role adequately prepared you for this, or did it actually prepare you for this?
So I like the reframe because I would say that's exactly it. So even in our training, I probably came across 2 persons that would have been diagnosed with autism. And when you're taught about autism, you kind of learn it even in the profession and in the stereotypical way. Children with autism are cold, they're interested in trains, they line up things, and it mostly happens in boys.
Right.
So by far, that's the information that you're given. So when I got a daughter, that was the furthest thing
Yes.
from my mind. And then over time, I'm noticing, even as early as 3 months, that she wasn't acting like other babies were. She wouldn't cry. She was groaning mostly. It was very difficult to soothe her. Once she started crying,
Yes.
that was it. And I was like, I don't know what to do here. No one around me knew
Yes.
what to do. And nothing in the book would have been helpful.
Or adequate, yeah.
And at that time, you're like, okay, maybe she'll grow out of it. As she got older, and it became more and more evident
Yes.
that this was autism. And once it was recognized that it was severe, even the specialists who were supposed to help me were like, severe, we can't do anything.
Wow.
And so I wasn't the specialist in it, and the specialist in it was telling me, once it's severe, we can't do anything. And I never forget this line that she
Wow.
said, well, if anything could be done, Tony Braxton child wouldn't still have autism.
Wow.
And that kind of stuff. So the profession definitely didn't prepare me. But my love for my child was
Propelled
the thing
you,
that
yes.
propelled me to continue seeking every avenue possible.
And that's why it's so important for the work parents do. You know your child best, and a lot of strides that have been made in this field, it's from parents like you who are
Exactly.
passionate and the
Exactly.
love that propels you. And I know I have read your book, that you have a copy right here. It is an interesting story.
Yeah.
I've started reading it, not quite finished yet, but I'm telling you, members of the audience, you need to get this book. When
When
A
a goose
goose Gets a Duckling. Yes, tell us about this book.
All right, so this book actually came about when I was maybe in the 3rd phase of my journey of trying to get her additional help, and I thought, you know, it's been a very difficult road
Yes.
getting here, and I didn't have any guidance. And in my professional experience as well, I was seeing more and more persons having an autism diagnosis, and parents were turning up and they didn't know what to do. And the usual thing is, once persons get diagnosed with autism, is for them to be told, go and get ABA. And you need to get 8 hours of ABA, at least 5 days per
Yes.
week. And then that becomes something that's unattainable for most persons because the cost of that is phenomenal.
Yes, indeed.
And that was one of the things that I was being told very early. And the cost for 40 hours of ABA
Yes.
per week was 3 to 4 times what I was
Yes.
earning. And so that was very difficult for me. But throughout my journey, I learned about occupational therapy and delivering it a particular way,
Yes.
as well as getting your child to be attached to you. And attached doesn't mean dependent. It means that they see you as the safe person. They see you as the person they can trust. They see you as the
Right.
person to go to for whatever they need. Once you've created that attachment now, you can get into your child's world,
Yes.
right? And so this is an important point I make in the book, that we want our child who is in their own world.
Yes.
And they have that world to feel safe. It's not a bad thing, you know. They're trying to feel safe in that world.
Yes.
And we're like, no, no, no. The thing that you're doing to feel safe, stop doing that. Come over into our world, even though you don't understand it. And so part of the training and learning was that I had to be more in the thinking of, I have to get into her world. So literally when we went to the playroom, I would do the things she did, make the sound she did,
Yes.
play with the toys that she was playing with, and if she said no, it's no. Right? So even though it's counterintuitive and there's a parent should guide children and autism,
Right.
it has to be, I will do what makes you comfortable because I know you're trying to be safe.
Yes.
And so those are some important lessons that I learned, and I think when you're just starting your journey, the thinking to parent a child who's on the spectrum has to be very different than parenting a child who's neurotypical.
Interesting indeed. And it's like your story parallels some of what I've been through, because I remember when the pediatrician suggested speech therapy when my child was barely 2 years old. And the speech therapist, she did that. She said, enter his world, start mimicking him. And I just started making the sounds he was making. And he looked at me for the first time, like that connection. And I was saying, wow, you know, there's something in this. And the journey continued.
Yeah, the first time my daughter looked at me in a meaningful way was when I sat down and did the very same thing she was doing. And she just sat and just like looked straight in the face and like... And that created a nice little connection, and the more we did that, the more she would look at me, and people would never imagine how wonderful something is as just a kid looking at your face.
Yes, that connection.
If you have a neurotypical child, you take that for granted, but on the autism journey, it's something really, really wonderful.
Wow, interesting. And that's just the wonder of that journey.
Yeah.
And I mean, you said I was looking at your page, and you said something like, it's ironic that you would be a psychiatrist.
Yeah.
And dealing with people with mental health issues, and then with a child with...
So that has been another interesting part of the journey, is that persons just assume because I'm a psychiatrist, automatically I would know how to deal with a child who has autism. And that kind of thinking happens in the public, it happens with professional, it happens in the family. And sometimes people become very insensitive. And in the book I mentioned as well, one of her first day at a new school, when she was doing the intake, and the person doing the intake looks and says, oh, you're a psychiatrist and your daughter has autism? That's so funny. But
what a comment. That I don't think that person was thinking about how it sounded.
They didn't think about how I wouldn't find that funny.
Yes.
Clearly. And so it presents an interesting contrast.
Yes.
And it came with some amount of grief and sadness later on, because, again, they taught us very early, if someone has autism, conditions like ADHD in the past would not be diagnosed with autism.
Yes.
And so they kind of teach you that a lot of the behaviors that you're seeing is autism. And so when my daughter got a second evaluation, I think she was around 9 or so.
Okay.
And they diagnosed her with ADHD. And the ADHD got treated, and she was so much better in her functioning, and I was like,
wow.
Oh my God.
Like day
and
and
I'm
night.
a mental health professional, completely missed it. It made her life better. It made everybody's life better.
Wow. So then, even though we may have our hiccups about medication, as a professional, you would encourage it?
So, strictly speaking, autism is not a condition that you can treat with medication.
Right.
But because autism is a condition that affects how the brain develops, invariably, that atypical or unusual brain development comes with a lot of other possible conditions.
Okay.
Especially ADHD is one, anxiety disorders, depression, and other more serious conditions can occur.
Okay.
with
So
autism. So when we're saying medication, we're not saying medication to treat autism.
oh,
Is medication if there are other things coexisting with autism. And sometimes, again, because of the spectrum illness, everyone is impacted uniquely.
right.
And some children can hurt themselves. And medication might be a temporary way to get them to decrease the risk of harm to self or
Yes.
harm to others while other strategies come on board.
Okay, very important point there. Wow. And that's something that the typical person wouldn't be thinking about.
Right.
And that is why we really need to, get information from the professionals and then move with information. And, as I was thinking about the fact that it's ironic that, we're professionals in the field and then our child presents it with the issue that throws us. I sometimes wonder, because from a faith-based perspective, is it that these challenges are, or pain points are bringing out our purpose, what our purpose is? And it's interesting when I think about, as I said before, I don't think God causes bad things to happen because it's an imperfect world. I'm not saying neurodivergence is bad either, but as a parent in the situation, it oftentimes feels bad.
Yeah, yeah.
And because it is so hard.
So what I would say, and sometimes these are difficult conversations, and
Yeah.
the expectation is that parents should be like, oh, I love my child no matter what, and my child is awesome.
Yes.
But the reality of it is when it's studied, parents parenting children on the spectrum, they say have the stress level of a combat veteran. So that's someone that was been to
Through
war.
the war, yes.
Right? And we're not saying that autism itself is damaging the family, but again, those parents are more likely to have issues with separation, divorce, those kind of things, because whatever stress was there,
It's no magnified.
it's now magnified.
Oh,
And so
wow, yeah.
persons parenting children on the spectrum need a lot of support. And part of what happened, and I'm going to admit it happened to me as well, I became so fixated on trying to solve this autism, to fix this autism. Like every waking thought was like, how can I help her? 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 And I was running myself to wreck.
Wow.
And I didn't even
Realize
it because
Yes.
all my thoughts were like, how can I help her? But if you want to help your child, you have to stop, see where you are mentally, help yourself,
Stop. See where I am mentally. Help
help
myself.
yourself, and then come back and take a second look. Because sometimes when you take a second look, you see it different. Because when I was just when I look at my kid, she was having a whale of a time.
Ah, when you took a second look.
Yeah. When I took the second look, I'm like, she don't care about nothing. She's quite happy with herself, running around, making her funny sounds with the 6 things in her hand and the other in her mouth.
Yes.
And she was good. I was the one who was stressed.
Stressing, yes.
She was not stressed at all. And I had to see that, and I was like, okay.
Okay, so we have to come back and look at things differently. All right. And I still say God makes all things work together for good, and that's Romans 8, verse 28.
Yeah.
And I just see purpose in this because 2 Corinthians 12, verse 9 says, my grace is sufficient for you. And there are times when I just have to depend on his grace because I don't have that strength. And the scripture says, my power is made perfect in weakness. And when I look at scripture, I see that pattern. God often prepares people for their calling through very difficult experiences sometimes. David, for instance, was trained in the field first, shaped in the wilderness before he was able to lead.
Yeah.
So he learned all of what he knew while he was fighting off the lions and the bears. And later when he stood before Goliath, it wasn't because it was a new battle. It was because it was a familiar one, I think, yes.
But I think that's a good point, because even in writing this book and coming back on the things that I'm practicing, if I just learned psychiatry my traditional way and continue to practice, the viewpoint that I have now, it would not be that.
Yes.
Right? And when I'm seeing our family and the child is having any mental health issue, regardless of if it's autism or not, I know how disruptive that is.
Yes.
I know how painful that is. I know how hurtful that is.
Yes.
So I'm not only empathizing with that family, I am sympathizing with
Yes.
that family because I've gone
Through it. Yes.
Right? And this is something that I didn't put in the book. But I'll share here. One of the most difficult days I've ever faced is to see my daughter standing in the middle of the road on Birch Tree Hill Road with a complete stranger that the lady had to turn her car across the way, holding on to her.
Wow.
Because we were getting ready to go for a walk. And I went to the bathroom to change, and she decided, I'm just going to go about my business. And I'm like, where is she?
Wow.
And I'm running down the road, and to see her standing in the middle of the road, a complete stranger to come. And she was just smiling,
Unaware. Of what's
completely
happening.
unaware. And that pushed me further to say, I need to learn more about this autism thing. And when we
Yes.
went away, learned some additional things, came back and started to use the things that I learned in the community, start even to use the things with the Lighthouse School. And so in trying to help her, I was able
To help others.
to learn new information and to help others as well.
Interesting. So now you actually refined your craft.
Exactly.
Wow. So pain turning into purpose. Wow. And sometimes the very area that we feel stretched in, whether it's parenting, mental health, or navigating uncertainty, may actually be the place where God is equipping us. So, my next question is, what's the difference between a psychiatrist and a psychologist? Because I usually get them mixed up.
Okay. So let's start with the easier one. So the psychiatrist is first a medical doctor.
Okay.
Right, so you are trained as a medical doctor, you do your mandatory things like your internship, and then you can go into a psychiatry program to specialize. So in Jamaica, it will take about 11 years to become a psychiatrist. So 5 years of med school, 1 year
Yes.
of internship, 1 year of senior house officer, and then you go into the program and specialize, and it's a 4-year program.
Okay.
So you can feel comfortable to know that if you're seeing a psychiatrist, you're seeing someone who is
Also,
well trained.
okay.
And so the role of a psychiatrist, we can provide medical diagnoses,
Yes.
investigations, can prescribe medication. Some psychiatrists are trained in particular talk therapy techniques, and they may have additional trainings as well.
Okay. So then you have really become refined
You're right.
in your profession.
And a psychologist is not a medically trained person. So a psychologist is particularly trained to use talk therapy or talking techniques to explore thoughts, usually explore past, present, and how you formed your opinion about self, others, and the world, and to try to give you strategies to change how
Okay,
you
so
think
it's like
about the
therapy
world.
then.
Yeah, it's so primarily therapy-based kind of interventions. There are few psychologists in certain parts of the world who are licensed to prescribe a limited scope of medication,
Okay.
but most persons in the Caribbean are not medication prescribers.
Okay, that's very good to know. All right, so we can, with this information, we can decide if we need to see a psychiatrist or a psychologist.
Yes.
Okay, so if I should go to HSA and I'm having a mental health issue, they can help to channel me to which direction?
Yes, but here I'll say if you go to Integra Healthcare
Oh, to Integra Healthcare, right?
or Doctor's Hospital.
Or Doctor's Hospital, all right.
Yeah.
Okay, lovely. So, when I met you, Dr. Stenette, you were giving a very, very dynamic talk at the Alex Panton.
Yes.
It was a youth mental health
Symposium.
And you really made some profound, or gave some profound information that I found really interesting and profound. Because you were talking about the brain and all of that. Earlier you said about the family, you can't really treat the child without the whole family.
Yeah.
So could you break down for us what's the difference between the neurotypical brain and the neurodivergent brain?
All right. So the information about this is continuously changing, right?
Okay.
So the simplest way to look at how the brain functions is to say that the brain communicates in networks.
Okay.
Right? And so a particular network might be responsible for processing one set of information. Another network is responsible for processing one set of information. And the networks have to communicate.
Okay.
If the networks fail to communicate, then how they're able, or information is processed will vary. And so when persons are have a diagnosis of autism spectrum disorder, to say that they have faulty neural networks.
Okay.
So the way information is being sent varies significantly. And sometimes you can see that results in sometimes someone on the spectrum is able to do something one time, but another time they're not able to do it.
Oh.
And so sometimes it's often dependent on what we say a state-dependent functioning. So am I calm? Am I happy? Versus am I irritated? Am I sad? And so that is a simple way of looking at that part. But if you want to look at it in terms of a bigger picture,
Right.
when someone has an autism diagnosis, it affects every aspect of the nervous system, so not just the brain alone. So it is affecting the brain, the lower centers, below the brain, the spinal cord, the nervous system entirely, right? So one of the things we talk about in autism is a sensory processing disorder.
Right.
Right, which means that the way that the persons are interpreting information from the senses, so the general things like touch, taste, smell, all those things are impacted. And so for you, if I'm talking to you at this volume, if you don't have a sensory processing disorder, it sounds like a normal level.
Oh.
But someone on the spectrum, this level of speaking could sound like screaming, and they might feel the need to cover the ear. Or it might not register at all, and they might completely ignore.
Oh,
So-
like a low register.
Autism is an entire nervous system kind of disorder, but the simplest way is what I've said so far.
Okay, thank you for that. That's really enlightening and very clear. Okay, so what are the more common neurodiverse conditions that we see? Because we hear the typical ADHD,
Yeah.
Autism.
Yeah. So those probably would be the two most common conditions, but when we say autism, the other important part is it being on a spectrum.
Oh, okay.
And so it would be further categorized based on the level of support that persons need, right? So, and in a very funny way, the level of support that you need doesn't automatically mean that one person will have a greater function compared to the next, because there could be someone who is diagnosed with autism level 1 and they're intellectually gifted.
Ah.
Right, and they may be at the top of the profession, but socializing is an issue, and so it would be very difficult for them to go into the workplace despite them being highly functioning in other aspects of life. And you could have someone with level 3 functioning who does not have that gifted level of IQ, but socializes easily and interacts with others easily and is not uncomfortable.
Ah.
So it's a very interesting illness in that's why we're saying spectrum. Each person is affected uniquely.
Ah, so no two persons on the spectrum could be the same.
Exactly. And I think that is very important. So as they try to make the world more, or put more information to increase autism acceptance and understanding of autism, Hollywood is trying to catch up, because I think for the most part, a lot of our persons on the spectrum are conceived would be like Sheldon from
Yes.
The Big Bang,
Or the good doctor.
or the good doctor.
That's only the good doctor, yes.
Yeah, but it doesn't tell the story of other persons who are having lower level of functioning. So like when I talk about my daughter, when she was just being diagnosed, and there was a lot of aggression, there was a lot of tantruming, there was a lot of crying, there was a lot of screaming. And those kind of representations aren't there as it. But it's the lived experience of family members, family and other members of society.
Wow, interesting. Listen, you've been tuning in to Faith Beyond the Labels with Liz. Do not go anywhere. We'll be right back.
When you need ultrasound that's safe and effective, you must visit Asai Ultrasound Imaging. They're conveniently located at number 4 Chestnut Center, Smith Road, Georgetown, Cayman Islands. With experienced technologists with over 20 years experience, their friendly staff will make you comfortable while you get your procedure done. Asai Ultrasound Imaging is open Mondays to Fridays, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. and 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. on Saturdays. Call Asai Ultrasound Imaging 345-949-2454 or 345-938-3426. That's 345-949-2454 or 345-938-3426.
Welcome back to Faith Beyond the Labels with Liz, where stories shine, faith ignites, and every soul finds its flame. I've been talking to Dr. Stenette Davis, and he has been sharing a wealth of information on neurodiversity and his experience as a parent with. And now we're talking about diagnosis, denial, and divine direction. So we were just talking about ADHD and the neurotypical brain and versus neurotypical versus typical. Yes. So why is it that ADHD is considered one of the more treatable? Is it the more or most treatable condition?
It's probably the most treatable condition in psychiatry, and that's because it's extremely responsive to medication.
Okay.
Right. So this is one of the denial battle that we face. A common thing that will happen in children or even older persons who have ADHD is that they'll get a report says, smart kid needs to try harder, talks too much, always staring in space.
Right.
And then the impression that comes from it is that you need to do better versus this condition is affecting how you're functioning.
Right.
And so when assessments are done and children turn up with a diagnosis like ADHD, the parents often don't believe it because they're like, no, he can focus, doctor. You know why I know that? I watch him play a video game from morning till evening. So if he can play a video game all day, he can read his book. But what is true? If we're doing something that is fun and exciting, we're more likely to be able to do it for long versus something that is difficult. And that's whether or not you have ADHD.
Okay.
So what the medication does for ADHD is to create the same thing in the brain chemistry as when something feels fun and exciting.
Oh.
And so it's literally giving you that brain chemistry where you're able now to engage and pay attention to something for much longer. So in a way, video game is almost like medication, right?
Oh.
It keeps you focused, highly stimulating, keeps you focused.
Understood. So then if a child is studying, for instance, and finding it difficult, it could be something that they could really consider.
And you will also find that persons who are diagnosed with ADHD, they can study their favorite subject easily. Because again, that's fun, that's exciting, that's stimulating. But another topic that feels more difficult, they struggle with.
Okay. So how can parents move from this fear to acceptance? Because would you say denial is common in families that you see?
Denial is very common because that's a human response to anything that we wouldn't want to be true, right?
Yes.
So it's a universal experience. Like imagine if you were driving the car and you hear a sound in the engine, you say, "This is not happening."
Yes, that's
this
true.
This is not happening, and you're hearing it, right?
Because you don't want it to be.
You don't want it to happen, and so your brain is trying to reject it in hope that something changed. So a lot of times, what we have to do is accept that this is a normal experience that the parents are going through, and meet them where they are.
Right.
Right. And so one of the discussions that I'll have with my parents, they'll say, I don't want my child to be on medication. I don't fight that.
Right.
My question then becomes, okay, you have the right to choose that as the parent. But let's imagine 5 years down the line and your kid is still functioning like this. What does his life look like? And then they will stop. And then I'll say, okay, let's imagine 10 years down the life. What does his life look like? And then that's something they can think about now. And now we can have a discussion about how we can help. So it's not how can we medicate, it's how we can help.
Because some, I don't know, some kids might be surviving in different ways.
Yeah. And so part of what needs to change, so as we do more education, so this is a good forum to start, right? So
Yes.
Congratulations
Thank
for
you.
that. Is that there are narratives like children grow with ADHD and persons that like have it. We're just waiting for them to grow it out. But what we're seeing more and more is that a diagnosis of ADHD, the hyperactivity symptom tends to improve much quicker or faster than the inattention symptoms.
Okay.
And the inattention symptoms can persist throughout life. And so you may have persons who are extremely hyperactive. You went on the summer break, they came back, they're very calm. And the teacher is like, good. He's much calmer now on the report, but needs to
Right.
try better now that he's calm.
Ah.
But it fails to address that the inattention is still there, and that's why the kid is not learning.
Okay.
And it might mean someone who's very bright could be in a profession that would not have been if they had gotten the treatment that they needed.
Wow, interesting indeed. Because my second child, she just got diagnosed, having gone through high school.
Yeah.
But she would be probably what you describe as well-behaved, but there were periods when you had to be reminding her to complete work she wouldn't finish. And she would be bullied by her peers, and you don't know why, even though the teachers would see her as someone intelligent.
Right.
So that's just, and now that she's in higher education, you see where there is a need.
And I'm glad you made that point. So there are transitional periods which ADHD might make itself very evident. So in the early periods, if you have very good IQ, so like primary school level, a good IQ alone is good enough to take you through primary school. But when you reach high school, the amount of work and the intensity of work increases.
Okay.
And so if you have a very good IQ can take you through high school. But when you reach sixth form and university now, the volume and intensity of work is so much that if you have ADHD, that's when you start to see very clearly that you struggle to meet the demand. So sometimes persons will say, but she was the head girl. So if she's at university and she's not succeeded, she's being lazy, he's being lazy, he was the top student. But it's really and truly, the demand is now so much that IQ alone can't compensate.
Right, because deadlines have to be met and
you have to organize, you have to plan.
Yes. Yeah. On that note, I think I might get myself assessed. But that's for another time. So, Dr. Davis, I personally witnessed a situation where a colleague, well into adulthood, it was in my earlier years of teaching,
Right.
and she suddenly began having hallucinations and was very out of character. But her family insisted nothing was wrong with her, and they believed that, they even mentioned maybe others are just jealous of her.
Right.
And she eventually left the job because she resigned, hallucinated about going into some other job.
Right.
And I often wondered about her. I mean, and I think it was said that she was supposed to take the medications and they didn't take it because they just thought. So what could be happening in the situations that is at a time when the illness just decides to manifest?
Right. So
Or condition?
So medically, when we're speaking about hallucinations, usually we're talking about psychosis.
Okay.
Right? So it's one of the conditions in medicine with one of the greatest genetic risk, right? So most times when persons start to have symptoms of schizophrenia is because they have the genes
Oh,
for it, and the genes turn on. So the way that I like to explain genes is, because persons will say, but this person wasn't like this before. And I'll say, if you were a woman, you didn't have breasts before, right? And then you would say, but even if someone gets breasts, everybody has different size. So if the genes get turned on, it might look different in one person than the next.
yeah.
But genes also operate like a light switch. So imagine if you are light skinned and you go in the sun, what would happen? You'd get
Dark.
darker, and as soon as you get out of the sun, you probably go back to the other skin color over time. And so there's also that possibility that certain stressors in your environment
Oh.
could turn on the genes.
Okay.
But if those stressors go away, you could go back to how things were. And for some persons, using the light switch analogy again, if you flip on a light switch, it may stay on. Some persons are more fortunate that they live in a house with a dimmer switch, and so the intensity of the light could be less than if the switch was left on the whole time.
Okay. So
But most times when persons start to have those kind of symptoms, if it's not related to taking a substance or medication, is usually those genes get switched on.
okay, so maybe the parents were in denial because this wasn't their reality all along.
Right. And that it also makes the point that you can have a gene, but the gene doesn't have to turn on.
Oh.
So it's when the
you can be
genes-
predisposed to certain
Exactly.
things. But okay, got you.
You're a good student.
Right. So it's like in my family, everybody from my mother's line are artists. And it's like I can almost close my eyes and say, this little boy, although he's diagnosed with autism, he's going to be an artist too.
Right.
Because it just seemed to run in that side.
Right.
And you know, I've seen another case where there was a young man, a friend of mine has a son who very brilliant throughout school, but then he started smoking, and then smoking marijuana, and I just think that it triggered.
So
So-
I like this discussion because I like the chicken and egg part of it. So
Yes.
this is a common thing that is said, like, he was fine until he started smoking marijuana.
Okay.
And I, as a psychiatrist, will come on and say, he was not fine. That's
Oh.
why he started smoking marijuana.
Oh, I never thought of it that way.
Right?
So he was not fine, and
That's
that's why he
right.
started smoking.
So if he's using drugs, it means he wants one of two outcomes.
Mm-hmm.
To add something positive or pleasant, or to remove something negative.
Oh, add something positive or pleasant, or to remove something negative.
Right, and so sometimes the early onset of conditions like schizophrenia, there are a lot of negative thoughts, there are a lot of paranoid thoughts, there are a lot of distressing thoughts, and so persons are just trying to find a drug to take that away.
Oh.
And oftentimes because of how easy it is to get marijuana.
The
Marijuana
access.
is a drug of choice, or if they try alcohol, they don't get the effect they need, and
Okay.
marijuana might produce the effect.
Wow.
But marijuana itself can trigger psychosis. We're not saying it can't do that. But majority of persons, if you should take a proper history or if they explain in detail, you'll get an idea that things were not going the way they wanted to and they were trying to feel better or try to remove some negative experience.
Wow. Interesting. So then in treating that, you would have to be looking at what is behind it.
Right, so that's why you need professionals who study for 11 years.
Oh, yes. Professionals who study for
But
it.
yeah, it's extremely complex. You have to explore things like what are your support system, what are the family dynamics, what are your stressors, and sometimes when you take a history, you realize persons have been victims of serious trauma,
Oh.
right? And sometimes it's that early life trauma that has been affecting them quietly. And we aren't aware, and then maybe smoking is the thing that helps to relieve that stress that the persons are feeling, but also smoking marijuana could be one of the things that turn that gene on as well.
Wow.
So it's very
Interesting.
complex.
Very complex indeed. And you know, one of the things we often talk about on this show is not just diagnosis, but purpose. And many of us parents, we're just trying to understand our children, not just through the clinical lens, but through the spiritual one as well. we ask God, why? Or what are you doing in this? But from your perspective as a psychiatrist, what role do you think faith can play in a family's journey, especially when it comes to finding what I often call divine direction in maybe advocacy and care?
I think faith is extremely, extremely important in any family, because one of the things that faith does for the person is to decrease any sense of helplessness or hopelessness. So if your thought process is that things are going to get better or things can improve, you have something to look forward to or you have something to work towards.
Yeah, like that.
Right? So even in this book, one of my chapters called There is Hope.
There is hope.
Right? And
yes.
I remember when I went to that first therapy place, that was their motto, hope. And the moment I started to think, yeah, things can get better, then it meant that it became easier to get up every day. It took a lot of financial sacrifice. It made it feel okay that I was doing that sacrifice. So that is very important. But additionally, when persons of faith congregate, you're creating a community. Again,
Yes.
you don't feel isolated. You don't feel alone. So when you're out with persons of shared belief, shared value system, and people who are generally kind and loving, you need that kind of support to go through anything, whether mental, physical, or otherwise.
Absolutely. We need that support. And we sometimes hear that neurodiversity described as a superpower. And I know there are many of us, there are days we don't see any superpower in
Yeah.
this.
So,
How do we balance affirming strength while, yes, we want to say strength-based approaches and, feel-good stuff, but while addressing real challenges?
so neuroaffirming care is important. I'll say that categorically. But it does not necessarily mean that we create false expectations. And I personally don't like to hear that it's a superpower, right? Because that's not my reality. If you say my child's autism is his superpower, I can accept that that's what you believe. I can't challenge that. That's your world.
Yes.
But if you say autism is a superpower, then you will have to convince me, what is the ability that my daughter has at 14 that she can't form sentences? And if someone was to harm her, she couldn't tell me, where's the superpower in that? So in my mind, I'm very clear that it's a disability that limits functioning. But it's not the totality of the experience of the person who has autism, because she's one of the happiest person. I know she can bring life to her room. She has her own sense of humor. She has her own interests. And having someone in your life who is very happy, and you can see that person smile when you're going through a difficult day, can bring a smile to you as well.
Indeed.
And so there is great value that I find in her happiness. But I would never label this as a superpower. I definitely wouldn't.
Yes, I agree with you. I agree with you. So how do you respond to beliefs that it is purely spiritual? Because then there are those from the faith community who will say, okay, it's a spiritual attack, maybe.
Yeah. So that's the funny thing about belief, because you can't disprove someone's belief.
Yes.
If they say something in the spiritual realm. And anybody on the spectrum who grew up in the Caribbean diaspora would have had some aspect of these kind of discussions.
Yes.
And so my daughter, and this is not in the book either, I didn't put everything in the book, has been assessed twice by Anglican priests to see if she was demon possessed.
Oh dear.
And on both occasions they were like, no, she's not demon possessed. She's been prayed for by professional prayer warriors, so to speak. They've had persons anoint olive oil and so on. And so in that, it's still a part of community where persons are trying to provide care and provide support. So I see it as this is the community providing care. Where it becomes dangerous is when persons say this is demon possession.
They become definitive.
This is something, this is a spiritual attack. Because then it now limits what interventions you try to work towards. right? Because if my kid was demon possessed, the thing to do would be to get an exorcism, right? But if my kid has autism, the thing to do would be to get him to therapy, to get myself therapy so I can cope, so I can help my child. So when it becomes labeled definitively as something spiritual or demon possession, I think that can be destructive for the family, that can be destructive for the child. And so if you believe it's spiritual or demon possessed, attack it on two fronts. Get the spiritual side going, but still do the other things that the medical professionals are recommending, because it wouldn't hurt.
Yes, and that's a very solid point there. I agree. So faith and medicine can work together.
Of course. Because again, one of the important things about faith is having a higher spiritual power that you believe in. Believing in God, believing in Jesus means that you're never alone.
Yes.
And one of the biggest crises facing the world now is loneliness. So if you're never alone, you feel hopeful, you will feel less distressed.
Right. And the scripture says faith without works is dead.
My favorite part of the Bible.
So,
Yeah, and I'll tell you why. So when my daughter was in it, everybody would say, she's going to be all right. She's going to be all right. Don't worry, she's going to be all right. And I was like, wow, what is it going to look like? Nobody would give me the answer. But everybody would say, she's going to be all right. So I say, you know what? We do our prayer. We get her anointed. We get her the priest to assist her. We go to synod. We go to all those things. But I'm going to do my research. I'm going to go to therapies. I'm going to go to the Sunrise program. She's going to get speech. She's going to get ABA. I'm going to learn what I learned. And I'm going to try to build a community around her, so when I can't be there physically, then she has people around her who can love her still.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I agree with you, because that was my mindset as well. I decided that I was going to learn everything, even though I was actually studying special ed.
Yeah.
But I decided now that I was going to learn some of the things so I can help her at home. So when the therapist does their thing, when they do their thing, I want to extend what they're doing at home.
Correct.
So
correct.
I'm now...
and I think, I'm glad you said that. That's one of the big things that is missing in how therapy is being delivered in the Caribbean. I see it here in Cayman, and definitely was a thing in Jamaica. When I went to that program in therapies, which is in Miami,
yes,
the things that they were doing, they taught you, and they said, continue doing these things. And then when she made her jump, they came back and they said, good, she's moved beyond that. Here are the new things to do.
Okay.
Continue doing these things at home. And by continuing those things at home, it made so much difference.
Wow.
But before I would take her to therapy, she would be in a room with them, they would send her back, and then
you wouldn't have a clue what they did.
I wouldn't have a clue what they did. And that makes a world of a difference doing it at home. And it also builds a relationship, because the kid, you're having more interaction, you're having more opportunities to laugh, you're having more opportunities to smile, you're having more opportunities to see the capabilities of your child. So it makes a world of a difference.
I agree. I totally agree. And that's one of the reasons why I started. My son got ABA therapy, but when I started learning the DIR floor time model, that was started by Dr. Stanley Greenspan, I found that that model, it really aligned with what I was already doing, but now I can do it in a structured way.
Right.
And get that other part, the response and, that affects side. So the research is important.
It is.
And so now I don't have to just rely on ABA, which has its own place.
Right. And since we're talking about research, so if anyone is listening to this, so the model before where they were saying 40-hour session per week, the thinking around that has revised.
Oh, it has been revised.
It has been revised, and so the suggestion is anything beyond 25 hours per week is not more effective.
Oh.
There are no additional benefit is gained.
Interesting.
By doing a 40-hour week. And so that's useful financially,
Yes.
for parents, and that's useful emotionally, because one of the things that I would come home from work very tired and don't have the energy to do anything with her and just sit there feeling bad like I'm not doing enough to help my kid.
Interesting, indeed. Yes, so I don't feel bad now that you've said that, because my son could only do it after, because he was in a regular preschool, because the feeding therapist felt that it was good for him.
Yeah.
Because he was seeing neurotypical kids, But then he only did it after school, and I was saying, oh, he's not able to get the 40 hours. But
Yeah.
that's hopeful. That's making me feel hopeful. So we have now come almost to the end of our program, and what an enlightening discussion that I've been having with Dr. Stenette Davis, a psychologist here in the Cayman. Psychiatrist. See, I'm mixing up the terms again. A psychiatrist. He's actually a medical doctor, but a trained psychiatrist. Right. So now you've done your research, and now we're in the business of advocacy.
Yeah.
What does a strong parent advocacy look like?
So a strong parent advocacy means first understanding your child. So when you're speaking from an authentic place.
Yes.
But it also means understanding that you're speaking from the perspective of understanding your child.
Yes.
Because every kid with autism is their own unique person. And so that's why I made a comment that I don't like when persons say autism is a superpower. You can say autism is a superpower for my child.
Yes.
Because that's your lived experience. And so as part of advocacy, you have to create the space where discussions can happen, where you're open to other person's perspectives and to not just stick to yours. I'm constantly shifting my thinking. So before I was like, this neuroaffirming language, they need to stop that foolishness. And then I sat with a parent and saw how important that was, and I had to say, okay, I was wrong. I have to rethink this. And then I had adult autistic persons who had a neuroaffirming assessment, and she said, oh, it made her feel seen, it validated her existence, that there must have been a reason why she was living the way that she was, and she felt so much relief from having that. So that's part of the advocacy. And once you've gotten the information, do not gatekeep. Gatekeeping is a big thing in this autism I don't mean Cayman, I mean internationally.
Yes.
So oftentimes when persons find something that works for their child, for fear that they might not be able to access it again, they do not speak to other persons about it. So gatekeeping in the community is a massive challenge.
So that means if I'm hearing, for example, that Lou covering is creating waves in the community.
Exactly.
And I said, okay, I'm not going to tell anybody because
the
I don't want them to finish the supply.
Exactly. Exactly. Gatekeeping is a barrier to advocacy.
Okay, so don't gatekeep. All right, so what would you say to a parent who is unsure about seeking help?
I would say first to explore what would be the worst thing about seeking help. Answer that question in your mind. What would be the best outcome from seeking help? And answer that question in your mind. And then you can make...
And what's the worst thing that could happen? Okay.
Yeah. Because if you're seeking help, if someone offers, you can choose to say no. So if you go to see a professional, no one can make you take the help. You still have the opportunity to say no if that's not what you want. But doing nothing guarantees that you can't get any change.
No change will happen if you
so
sit and do nothing.
That's how I would say.
Yes. And we're going to end on that note. Thank you so much for sharing your time and expertise with us and sharing your heart with us. How can listeners connect with you or get copies of your book? Because I know you have written more than one book.
Yes, so you can search me up on Amazon. That's Stenette Davis. But this book, When a Goose Gets a Duckling, Parenting My Autistic Child, is also on Amazon. I'm also on... I have a Facebook group called Autism and Neurodivergence Forum.
Okay.
On Facebook, so that's Autism and Neurodivergence Forum. You can connect with me there, and I'm also on TikTok at Dr. Davis Psych. At Dr. Davis Psych on, on TikTok.
Okay, there you have it. You can find him on social media. So diagnosis is not the end of the story. It is often the beginning of clarity, support, and direction. What feels like a struggle may actually be preparation for your purpose. Thank you so much for staying with us on Faith Beyond the Labels with Liz. If this story sparked something in you, or you found it useful, please do not gatekeep. Don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone who needs it. Until next time, keep rising and keep rising above the labels. Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for every parent, every child, and every family listening today. Lord, where there is confusion, bring clarity. Where there is fear, bring peace. Where there is denial, bring understanding. Help us to walk in wisdom, trusting you, while embracing the help and knowledge you have provided. Remind us that our children are fearfully and wonderfully made, and that nothing about them is a mistake. Give parents strength to advocate, courage to seek help, and faith to trust your divine direction. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
So let's continue to walk in faith, live with purpose, and see beyond the labels. Find us on Flashpoint Media.